Hello, everybody. Back again with Cassie. I'm Louise Edington, Cosmic Owl Astrology. I've now got pink roses in the background because I'm halfway through my Venus retrograde class. And I got this comment on my YouTube the other day saying, I'm in love with this class and I'm going to do it every time. And I'm like, it's magic. Anyway, Kathy's doing it too. So I hope she's finding it just as magic. But so you have to wait 19 months for the next one. Anyway, you can find other ways to work with me on my website, louiseedington.com. I am currently adjusting a few things, but you can find links to consultations. I have a private membership community. I also offer a paid subscription on my Substack that is shifting because of what the energies are telling me. But to find out more, you could always email me if you want more info. Anyway, Cassie.
I'm Kathy Beal. My website is empowermentunlimited.net, which has my weekly, new moon, full moon, monthly forecasts. I have guided visualizations in the shop. There's a lot going on and I'm having trouble focusing. So let me recenter here for a second. I have a weekly newsletter. It goes out every Monday morning with direct links to everything that I'm doing. And that's actually the easiest way to follow with me. And if you go to my site for the first time, there's an annoying pop-up that will invite you to sign up. Otherwise, I always have join my mailing list in the description of every video that we put up. My YouTube channel is Professional Aquarian. Louise and I, by the way, have been doing political astrological analysis since the beginning of November, twice weekly for several months, and now at least weekly. We have more than 32 hours worth of content at her site, her Cosmic Owl Astrology on YouTube, and at my Professional Aquarian. Odds are we've talked about someone you're curious about. And I've got a playlist, election 2024 and
And
beyond.
mine is world events, my
World
playlist.
events. That's
Yeah.
probably a smarter way to put it. I also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Kathy Beal, where I have 45 to 60-second quickie smart ass forecasts for the day to focus what you're up to. And these are proving to be weirdly popular. And finally, on Facebook, my page is Empowerment Unlimited. And I have a group, the Astro Insight Lounge, where we discuss how astrology is playing out in the news and also share lots of stupid memes. It's
And
very fun.
it's probably the only group on Facebook that I actually go into regularly. I really like that group. I
Thank
used
you.
I used to have a group, but I'm a bit off Facebook, but I will go into Kathy's group because I like it. So I'm going to share one of my beautiful slides from my from my Venus class, just to show you the amazing aspects for the week ahead. And so this actually kind of started 2 days ago because we're on the 21st now. But we've had the sun, because Kathy usually just reads through them, but since I'd created this slide, why not? So March the 19th, we had the sun conjunct Neptune. These are all very big aspects, by the way. I want to tell you that this is just an enormous pivot point, turning point, fulcrum, whatever you want to call it. Yesterday, the sun entered Aries, which of course it does every year. But that the zero Aries point is called a world point, or the point of creation. And this year, there's a lot happening at that point, which is why it's different this year. I've incidentally done a whole video that I've got to upload on that too. So, but just about in general. So watch for that. March 21st, Venus sextiles Pluto today. That's relevant, even though it's a minor-ish aspect. I don't know if any aspect is completely minor because it's tied into all of these things. So it's in Aries and Aquarius. Then we've got the last quarter moon early tomorrow morning, halfway point between the two eclipses. And eclipses are always a very potent period as well. So this is an extra last quarter moon. We've also got lunar maximum, or lunar standstill, the major lunar standstill, which this is kind of an image. This is the ecliptic, the path the planets go along. And this is where the moon is in Capricorn for this peak moment where the moon goes the furthest out of bounds, which means it's the furthest off the path of the ecliptic possible. And it's happening on the very same day for a few hours as all this other stuff. And there was something else. Oh, by the way, it goes out of bounds at 28 degrees of Sagittarius, and it goes 28 degrees out of bounds. You can't make that up really, right? The numbers. And that's conjunct the galactic center. Anyway, then we have the Sun conjunct Venus, which is a cycle I work with a lot, which is called the Venus star point in the work I do. And that is kind of like a new Venus cycle. Venus then will move and rise as morning star. And then 2 days later, we have the Mercury cazimi, because Mercury is retrograde in the same signs. And then Mercury is also going to rise as morning star after that. So they're both going to rise in the east. And that's always got a very new beginning kind of thing to it. So this is just an amazing week. I've been looking at this week for ages, and it's just like mind-blowing or soul-blowing. Anything you want to say?
Yes, I'd like to elaborate on this and then stretch it out a few more days. These different meetings, these different conjunctions bring the probability of assimilating, processing and assimilating, really getting whatever the conjunction is about. The one that was on the 19th with the Sun conjunct Neptune brought us some kind of graduation certificate from Neptune's his time in Pisces, which began in April of 2011. So there's something going on now of something locking in inside of you and your view of yourself and your experience of life. And then with retrograde Venus and retrograde Mercury fusing with the Sun, there's something in that of becoming one with or processing and assimilating what those retrograde journeys have brought up for you. And they've both been very, very energizing so far because they're in the sign of Aries so far, but that is going to change in a minute. How have you come back online? How have you come back to life? How have you decided, focused in on what you're going to fight for? What makes you feel alive and what you feel your mission is. Those are possible aspects of everything or factors in what's been going on. So taking this into next week, on the 25th, right after retrograde Mercury meets the Sun, it also has a contact with Pluto. Venus had an opportunity aspect with Pluto on the 21st. On the 25th, Mercury has this opportunity aspect, which opens the door to getting really clear on something within you, to stripping your thinking down, to actually facing something that maybe scared you, to having difficult conversations that bring the truth into focus. Right after, and then after that, we have an interesting dance of Venus going back into Pisces and meeting Neptune, Mercury going back into Pisces and meeting Neptune. That happens between the 27th and the 29th. So meeting Neptune for the last time in Pisces that we will ever live through. Venus and Neptune get along really well. They're both guardians of love and inspiration. This could be a time of really, really being spaced out, except for another thing we'll mention. I think it might be anesthetizing, and I see this as we're being basically baptized in communal waters, in all of life, in something that is much, much greater and higher than doing your taxes and paying your bills. Two other big things happen in the middle of this. the solar eclipse on the 29th in Aries, shooting us forward. So we're in this really foggy, emotional situation, and yet something is erupting within us. And right
Mhm.
after Neptune has his final meetings with Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde, Neptune on the 30th moves into a way of being that none of us alive at this time have ever experienced. Neptune moves across the world point. So I've got this dance going back and forth across the world point of Venus, peoples, values, creativity, Mercury, what goes in and out of our minds, how we, information flow, and then Neptune, our connection to something much higher than ourselves, going back and
It,
forth between interconnectedness and raw firepower.
it's just huge. And I just want to add as well that that eclipse on March 29th, both Mercury and Venus will, um, exact dates depend where you are, but they'll both be having what's called their heliacal rise on the eclipse pretty much as well. So that means that they become visible again after um, after they've become um, um, after they've been in their underworld journey. So they're both going to be kind of reappearing in the eastern sky. So that new moon eclipse is a new beginning and a new start, a reset, and you've kind of got a new Venus and a new Mercury all happening at the same time. It's like
So things are going to
so.
become clear
Oh yes, things
with
are
that.
going to
Very
start becoming clear. Yeah, because of course Mercury and Venus will both still be in Pisces when they rise, but still, which is not the clearest of signs, but things will start becoming very clear after that eclipse. Oh my goodness.
very clear. And your intuition, just communally, you're going to
Mhm,
understand things about other people, and this may be a time of knowing and not being able to explain at all. So harness this
mhm,
for your own meditation and guidance and intuition and creativity. Who knows
mhm.
what can be birthed out of all of this?
Oh, absolutely. It's and I know I had a little tiff with somebody in the comments last week about, I said don't get too stuck on exact dates. I just, and what I mean by that is tempering your expectations of what's going to happen in the outer world, because all of this is kind of happening together in a big kind of portal of massive changing and shifts, both internally and externally, because it's as without, so within. So, if you kind of listen to our more political videos and hear an aspect is on a certain date, I don't temper your expectations of what might happen, because we've been trying to show that the kind of news is coming in sideways a lot of the time, not from like, oh, the Democrats are going to do something or whatever. That's what I mean by that. I just don't want you to get hung up and then like gutted when something that you think might happen happens on a certain day. It's all coming in very sideways at the moment, which is very Piscean. So anyway. Okay.
However, before we get to charts, let me just briefly summarize some of the things that have been happening
Mm,
that do bear out what we've been saying. Louise has been pointing out so much extraordinary, excessive, out of bounds behavior of different bodies in the sky, and this has been reflected in completely over the top, overreaching power moves, pulling people off the street and shipping them out of the country without any opportunity to, with not having committed a crime in the moment, just nope, you look like you fit a profile. We're going to send you to a
mhm,
maximum security prison in another country. uh, that's pretty extreme. And
mhm,
the person in the White House repeatedly taking actions and signing executive orders on topics that courts have already said this is unconstitutional. Don't
Mhm.
do this. There are people who've been fired from positions at the top of agencies and ordered reinstated, and
Mhm.
it's still happening. So the
Mhm.
commissioners of the FTC have been fired. I'm sure there'll be a lawsuit about that. This order shutting down the Department of Education is unconstitutional. I'm sure attorneys general from many states are going to file a suit about that. The spread is still going into many, many, many agencies, but there's also been a this far and no further, especially with the courts. We did mention at the last lunar eclipse on the 15th, Saturn, which is the courts, it's law, it's order, it's the estate, like do this, it's a big wall, it's a stop sign, is smack in the middle of Trump's sun moon nodal axis. So there's a T square forcing order. It's almost like a small child acting out so much that he's demanding that the parents do things. And we have had court order after court order ordering the reinstatement of all the National Park Service employees, probationary employees who were let go, ordering Doge not to have access to the Social Security Administration sensitive data. The word this morning is that the acting commissioner says, oh, I'm not going to listen to that. And in more of the out of bounds behavior, um, you could just, and I've got a link underneath the
Mhm.
video on my site, litigation tracker. There are more than
Oh yeah.
100 cases going on right now. And the biggest thing out of all of this is the unprecedented speaking out by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. The court does not comment on current events. They just don't. And the
Mhm.
Chief Justice said, you don't impeach a judge if you don't like his decision, you go through appeals, because there's all kinds of noise about trying to impeach various judges who have dared to put
Yes.
any brakes on what the administration is doing. And the Department of Justice is actually taking the position that courts don't have the authority to review what the president is doing, which is in not any law book that any lawyer has ever encountered. So these are all examples of things that are playing out the energy. Yes, the wrecking ball is wrecking a lot that's in us, that's in the
Yeah.
structure of our government. But
Well, it's
um,
trying. It's trying to, but there's a lot of saying, "Nope, you're not going to do
oh,
that." As
and
well.
actually, this is unsustainable. This is unsustainable for any number of reasons. So hold the faith, people.
And I will just to add a couple of other examples. I read about kind of some professor from another country was denied entry into the country because he has criticized Trump. Most people know I love going to see live bands. There's a live band where most of the members were not allowed in the country because they were just turned around at the border because they criticized Trump. So, it's very out of bounds indeed, and it's happening other places too. I don't know if everybody knows that Heathrow Airport is having a technical issue, and they had to shut the airport down for a day. So it's kind of this chaos, which has caused all kinds of issues, as you can imagine, because it's the biggest airport in the UK. And so the out of bounds energy is happening everywhere. So it feels like chaos. It feels like out of control, but it's all this dissolution and things are going to come back together. Okay, my point.
We've
So
seen
shall
it.
we start
Now,
with the election day? Shall we go back to that, or do you want to say anything else before we do?
no, 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 no. We had a guest, a researcher, David Whitlock, on this week to talk about what he's been tracking with an asteroid called Hack. So we decided, let's see what it was doing on November 5th, 2024.
So I don't know if everybody remembers about the bomb scares on election day. I remember the first reports coming in from Georgia. They came in first, and thinking this is not right. And apparently there was well over 200 bomb scares. Um, in total, and they were all in swing states and swing districts. Okay, so anyway, we were like, how can we find, a time ish for when these happened? So luckily, I found an article, and I can't remember the name of the people, but it was like, I think it was a very, researchy kind of site, not and they just tracked the tweets about it. So there was kind of this peak started here because of all these bomb threats coming through. So I set the chart for 8 a.m. in Fulton County, Georgia, because that's where the first reports came in, and Raffensperger came on the TV. What, I can't remember what his title is there. Anyway, I quite like him.
Secretary of State.
Yes, he's the Secretary of State, and he's the one that kind of stood up to the current president before. Okay, so anyway, we don't have an exact time for the first. They came in by email, these bomb threats, but the first bomb threat came in early morning in a swing district in Fulton County, Georgia. So I set it for Atlanta, which is the biggest city in Fulton County. And here was asteroid hack. And well, my first thought was that it's in the eighth house, which is like hidden reveals kind of thing as well as things that are hidden. And it was opposing Ceres in Capricorn, which is the Saturn ruled sign. Capricorn is the structures and rules, and it was kind of revealing things. Square to Chiron, we'll talk about that in a minute. But I also love that, the ascendant would have been around this degree. And here's Uranus, which is very associated with breaking rules, again, breakthroughs, breakdowns, and Uranus was right sitting on the ascendant descendant at that time. And it was like this shock when I saw the first report, because I watched the election all day. I'm like a real election junkie. And I remember the first reports coming in, and this was before, all these 4 a.m. women woke up the next day going, this isn't right. And I was like, something's not right here. Something's off. Anyway, what else would you like to say, Kathy?
Well, Uranus is a disruptive influence, and it
Mhm.
rules electricity, it rules electronics, it rules the
And
computer
technology.
networks, and
Yeah.
the threats came through electronic messages, and it's sitting right on the doorway to the house of open enemies. And the
Hmm.
fact that that hack is in the eighth house suggests that there's money behind this.
Hmm.
There's a
Yeah.
financial interest. And so what we noticed immediately is, with Hack being opposite Chiron and both of them square, I'm sorry, Hack being opposite Ceres, right?
Hmm.
And both of them being square Chiron, that's a T square. That's demanding. Put both of them putting pressure on Chiron, which was
Hmm.
at the degree at the US Chiron. So we were having our Chiron return, happens every 50 years or so. And there was something here really, really inflaming the issue of might versus right, firepower, fighting, toxic masculinity,
Yeah.
aggression, um, I don't know, risk taking. Also, fifth house is risk taking, the house that it's
It
in.
it is. Yeah. And and we know that, the current apparent person in office has said, things like Elon knows those machines, and he's kind of talked about this quite openly, which is kind of risk taking as well. And we're also just um, hours basically after the Mars Pluto opposition, which is also forming a T square to asteroid Juno. I happened to leave my asteroids in when I sent Cassie this chart, so I'm just going to go with them. And Juno really is kind of the marriage asteroid, but she was the goddess of women and children as well. So, that turning point was there, and we know that all this is really affecting the most vulnerable people in the country. Uh, Look at the sun's degree too, though. That's trine the US sun, which is at 13 Cancer. So this is this is activating and highlighting all kinds of things, but all kinds of things that are also kind of coming back. Okay.
Two things I want to add to this. Jupiter at
Mhm.
20 degrees Gemini in an exact sextile to that Chiron, and it's opposite what Pallas Athena is at
Mhm.
20 Sag, so
Mhm.
which is trine that Chiron. So there's something that was really, really fueling this, and also there's a strategy behind it. This was not
Mhm.
a bunch of haphazard things. Pallas's
Good.
involvement indicates the strategic piece. Actually, there are three things I want to say. The second thing about Juno in the 12th house, Juno also rules agreements, contracts.
Mhm.
And there was
Mhm.
something here transforming, breaking, uh, behind the scenes, breaking
Yeah.
agreements, breaking contracts. And the final thing is that 13-degree Scorpio sun is trine down in the third house of communication. Um,
Cariclo.
okay.
Cariclo, Chiron's wife. She's a space holder, and she, is uh, holding space really for healing. So I see in this chart that things are gonna we're always gonna come back to roost, if you like. Jupiter was retrograde, as Kathy mentioned, that it was opposing Pallas Athena, but Jupiter is now direct and is heading back to that point again, and that will revisit that degree. We are heading towards our third Mars Pluto opposition, not long away. All these kind of degrees are really kind of going to be revisited, and Saturn was retrograde and is direct now. Neptune was retrograde and sitting on where the nodes are for the eclipses. So that chart from election day is being reactivated in so many ways by the current transits.
Great. That's all I've got.
Yeah, and also Chiron is now direct and building, moving up to speed, and the USA is leaving its Chiron return too. So, and I see Chiron as the key to healing as well as the wound. So, yeah, again, watch this space. There was a lot set in place on that election day, and I kind of think that Asteroid Hack, thank you, David Whitlock, is showing their plans for just hacking the election, basically, completely. And now, of course, we do know that there's several places. Yes, Greg Palast, thank you for keeping mentioning him in the comments. He did a movie called Vigilante, and he is showing up in interviews all over the place talking about one kind of hacking, if you like, or voter suppression. Then we've got the guy that's raising money for I can't
Election Interference Alliance, is that it?
yeah,
Or what?
something like that. Yeah, I'll look it up and find it really quickly because he's also showing up on lots of interviews as well. So it's the Election Truth Alliance. That's what they're called. And in fact, I'm going to try and email him and see if he'll come on here. Why not?
And they're raising money, but also the latest indication is that they're onto something in Pennsylvania, that they've made efforts there. And then of course we've got Anonymous, a coalition of hackers in the last week, taking credit for taking down X for a period of time, and apparently they took out Snapchat for a period of time, and claiming they're going after other social media platforms. But the reason I bring them up is they claim, we'll see, they claim that they have evidence of hacking in 3 swing states. So it's a live conversation.
It,
We're we've both lived through a lot of election cycles. Louise, not so much as a U.S. citizen, but me, yes. and I won't want to tell you who I first voted for. It was a long time ago. I've never seen the integrity of an election being actually investigated with the way it is going on now. The 2020 election, the noise was, but there wasn't really any investigation. There was something like 87 lawsuits that said you're wrong. This time,
Yeah. Yeah.
where there's
And
smoke, hmm.
there is. And to those who go, why didn't Harris and Biden and them do anything and things? I just invite you to remember this has been in a planning for a long time. Not just the hacking, but the voter suppression, those kinds and things like that, the building up of the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025 and bringing these people in different places. Then we've got all the other players that we've looked at. Peter Thiel, his name has been coming up an awful lot again in the last week. We don't have time to look at everybody's chart. And, they've been, strategizing, Pallas Athena, to do this for a long time. And I'm going to suggest a lot of roots started in this in the 80s with Reagan's election, which was the first Jupiter Saturn conjunction, right, in Libra. And now we are kind of under the first one for of Jupiter Saturn conjunctions in air signs for 200 years, and that one was at 0 Aquarius, so that's another hot degree. So we're just getting but it's all being revealed, as we keep saying. People are seeing it now and people are not happy, right? Apparently somebody commented that the veterans are all gathering to fight
Oh
this
yeah,
because
right, because
you
their benefits are getting trashed.
know, hmm so you know
That's a nice thank you. Thank you for devoting your life to serving the country. By the way, you get to go live in the street.
I know it's just astounding what's happening. But maybe with all this stuff at the end of Pisces, the last degrees of the whole zodiac, and so much of it, perhaps it had to all pile up for us to see it and rise up and do something instead of just going, oh, Biden should have done something. Because he said at that last address, it's up to you now, right? So
And there's an unavoidability and an inevitability to this giant pileup in Pisces. It's like if you're training a dog and the dog doesn't use the paper and you stick its nose in what it's done and make it look at it, that's kind of what is happening. We can't turn away. Even the people who still don't want to admit to what is going on, the ramifications are seeping in
Mhm.
everywhere. Even the
Yeah.
people who've been at the top of the food chain, they're really getting hurt by the power of conscious consumerism.
Mhm.
People are voting with their money. How many of you have changed your buying habits in the last couple of weeks? That is having an impact. There are charts about how these various people, how many billions they have all lost since
Mhm.
the end of January. We have an
Mhm.
impact, and something is building and connecting on a non-conscious level, on an emotional and spiritual level in
Mhm.
this next week and really coming into place. And
Yeah.
then everything changes with that eclipse.
So shall we look at the current occupants chart with the
Sure.
transits? Just
Sure.
because I know you guys, will want to hear that, but well, do you mind if I add Algol back in as well?
Please do.
Um,
While you're doing that, I'll mention that the last time that this summer, when Uranus was at first at 24 degrees on top of his midheaven, the doorway to his public house, it was next to Algol, the fixed star that is with Medusa. It's with the head, it's beheading. And that's when something happened that led to his wearing a huge bandage on his head. Well, in the last week, he was hit in the head with a microphone.
oh, was he? I didn't see. Oh, I did see it. Yes. It was quite funny. Yeah. And sorry, I'm going
Oh,
to take.
and the reason I bring that up is that Uranus is now back to where it was when that
Mhm.
incident, whatever it was, happened in Butler, Pennsylvania in June.
Yeah, yeah. And oh, did I take Algol out? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I meant to take another one out. I'll put Algol back in. Hang on. So Algol is his natal Algol is at 25, Taurus 24, and transiting Algol is at 26, Taurus 30. It kind of hovers back and forth a little bit, from our perspective. So don't pay too much attention that it's retrograde. But Uranus, the wrecking ball, which is going to swing back around, in my opinion, is both coming up to his Algol, then to a conjunction with transiting Algol again, and all right at the top of his chart too.
And notice on March
Look at
20,
this. Whoa.
it's exactly there. His midheaven is 24 degrees, Taurus 18, and Uranus currently is at 24 degrees, Taurus 18. The wrecking ball is making its third pass
Wow.
completely
The
today.
day. Wow. Wow. Oh, so
I love
just
astrology.
I know, me too. And I am just going to mention this fixed star because people might look at it and go, "What's that one?" That's Altair, and Altair is ideals and idealism. And interestingly enough, I interviewed an Irish astrologer called Andrew Smith in the Quantum Astrology Gathering. The recordings are all available for free, but you have to sign up on my website for them. But anyway, he mentioned Altair in the creation of the U.S. Constitution, and at that point it was at 29 Capricorn on our perspective. But I bring it up now because I already mentioned zero Aquarius degree and where Pluto is going back and forth over it now. Where I think we're getting evidence that the ideals of the Constitution were not lived up to. Most people know they were based on the Iroquois um, Constitution, but really they've only ever been for white men. And so, that's all coming around again as well. And I mentioned zero Aquarius for the Jupiter Saturn conjunction that took us into this age of air that was at zero Aquarius. So, anyway, just wanted to tie that in because this is why there's so much happening in the US. It's not just a Pluto return, it's not just the Chiron return. So much is happening. But anyway, sorry, back to Trump.
I want to draw attention to Mars at 20 degrees Cancer in his 11th house. The 11th house, group associations, this is Trump org, dreams and wishes. Mars is traveling through, now that it has gone through its retrograde and it's going forward again, it's traveling through territory that it was in October 2024. And Mars is going to hit Saturn. Let me see. When is it going to hit?
Oh, I can move the chart to it. So
At the
let's
beginning of April. It hits it on 31st.
April
It
1st.
Yep.
There we go.
So
His Saturn exactly. But it's
that
also still in a unbroken flow trine aspect to transiting Saturn at that point too. Brakes and foot accelerator brake or throttle brake, whichever you want to call it, but also like change and water signs reveals things.
the first time that Mars moved across that Saturn,
Mm.
there was a short-lived news story about offering another hush money deal to Stormy
Ooh.
Daniels. That happened then, okay? Money to a woman, Mars, Saturn, Cancer, money to a woman trying to buy her silence for the rest of her life. And this was happening during the campaign. And I thought, oh, that's another campaign finance violation. Might there be a consequence? And other people Andy Brewer said this isn't big enough. That wasn't clanging it for him, but who knows what else was going on at that time. But we're coming back by the beginning of the next month after we go through this really unusual period that Louise and I detailed of the next week. Then this happens. Something comes home to roost from mid-October.
And
Something.
I'm just going to come back to today because I'm not going to get the chart up again. But if people want to look back at the chart for the election day, asteroid Hack was at 20 degrees Cancer, and Mars is today at 20 degrees Cancer again. I told you guys it was coming back. It's all coming back to roost. And it's his nodes are also at 20 degrees. So, that's even, if we even look at the not major aspects, which most astrologers use squares, oppositions, conjunctions, and sextiles and trines, but minor aspects do activate things too. And so that's a semi sextile to his north node.
That's a
Coming,
very irritating aspect. I
it's
call
a
that
very
the
irritating.
pebble in the shoe. Like you keep
Yeah.
moving things, trying to get rid of it. Speaking of
Mhm.
other aspects, that Mars is also in conjunct or quincunx
Mhm.
Caraclo at 2020 Aquarius down there in the sixth house. So
Yeah.
there's
Mhm.
something, I don't know, a woman, maybe, maybe involving a woman, could be, I don't
Yeah.
know. Would it be the head of the ICC? I don't know. Would it be the head of the EU? I don't know.
Yeah. Or would it be Pence's wife who's pushing Pence to do things? We've looked at her before, but you can't always tell. I know, guys, you want certainty, but we can't always tell who exactly. But it's things are definitely coming back to roost. So, and then we've also, all these conjunctions with Neptune are really happening on the edge of his eighth house, which is not a comfortable place for him as well, for revealing the secrets. Once everything goes back into Aries, everything's going to come out with shady dealings of manipulation and power, which is a shadow of the eighth house. It's kind of like other people's resources, yes, but also it's the place of the occult, which means hidden. So, it's yeah.
Well, notice that we've got retrograde Venus and retrograde Mercury in Aries in his eighth house. And
Mhm.
so when they turn around,
Mhm.
they're going to go back into Pisces, and then they're going to both station direct in March. By the middle of March, they'll both be direct and starting to move forward. And as they make their way back into Aries, they're going to bring along whatever revelations and discoveries and reworkings they turned up, and then they're going to square his Mercury in the 11th. So there will be
Yeah.
more. It's like ding, 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 more revelations, more information coming out, more secrets coming out.
Hmm.
And I'll just throw into this, I've mentioned this in so many videos, but I'll bring it up in
I
this
just
one again.
Sorry, I just put it to when Mars hits his Venus just to get an idea of when it is. But
Oh,
anyway,
that's
they
good. That's April
oh,
7th. So
and look at what degree Venus is at on that point. Conjunct Saturn too. Oh, I'm sorry. That's
I have a scenario for what that might be, but we'll just
go
leave
on.
that to fantasy.
Oh.
Uh, but I just want to point out in between this, when that Aries lunar solar eclipse erupts on the 9th, that's activating NATO. It's also activating Tulsi Gabbard's chart. So who knows what
Oh yeah.
blurt, but it's activating NATO, which has been like, what are we going to do? And, well, not they've been saying things and saying things and saying things and building things up, but something comes out of them. That eclipse is on NATO's Venus Mars conjunction in Aries. That is the alliance, the military alliance, that we've got each other's backs point,
Yeah.
and that happens before we hit this. So this is
Mm.
a so this Saturn, Venus Saturn conjunction, trining Mars on his Venus. That EU
Yeah.
president, the ICC. Oh, I don't know, another woman who has been a
Or,
sacrificial victim. Hmm.
yeah. Or Venus. Venus is also money as well, so it could reveal more money dealings and, shady dealings around that as well. So, or all of them, because this is big. There's a lot of things. And meanwhile, to go back to where we talked about election day, here's Jupiter trucking along. We said Jupiter was also retrograde on election day and was at 20 degrees Gemini. Now Jupiter is moving fast. I don't know. Can you see that on the share?
Yes.
Yes. So Venus is now moving fast and traveling over the old ground and is about to conjunct his natal Uranus, which is, kind of shocks, breakthroughs, wrecking ball, but but also coming up to his north node as well, where it was on election day. So it's just it's all going to come back around. I think they've flown too close to the sun. We've said that before, kind of Icarusy things, because look at all the protests against Elon, and we're not going to put his chart up again because
No.
it's just all coming.
Now, in the house system that you use, Porphyry,
Mm,
the sixth house, house of health, has
mm,
Capricorn on the cusp. So that means Saturn is the ruler of this house.
oh,
On the seventh, Saturn and Venus conjunct. Well, Saturn's actually going to be uh, in this spot for a while. Saturn opposing his uh, I'm sorry, Saturn trining his Venus and Saturn sextiling his Algol. This could be a health event
oh,
also, growing out of the stress. Now in the chart a house system I use, which is Placidus,
mm,
Aquarius is on the sixth house cusp, which is ruled by Uranus, and Jupiter is going to hit his natal Uranus. Either way
mhm,
you look at it, there could be something that is a reaction in his body
mhm.
to things that are going on, and it will probably involve his head in some way, which there are aneurysm, stroke, whatever. I don't
Yep,
see how his health continues to trundle along the way it has been with this happening.
yeah, I agree. And also, please know everybody that by this point, and it's happening actually on March 30th, Neptune has dipped into Aries for the first time. Neptune will retrograde back into Pisces briefly and finish the journey that started in 2011. But Neptune in Aries has a whole different vibe, and the fire kind of burns off the illusion as well, and of Neptune, and you know people are going to see even more clearly. More and more people are seeing it now. And, I know we're all impatient, those of us that always saw it, but, I just, it's just going to start happening faster and faster. Veterans, older people who rely on social security, all kinds of people are waking up. So, yeah.
I want to ask you about one thing before we let this
Mm,
go.
mm.
Uh, I never remember this. In the seventh house, there is a body at 20 degrees Pisces in the
Oh,
transit seventh house.
Oh, that's sorry, Centaur Nessus, who really is about abuses of power. And yeah.
You see where it is? It's at the midpoint. It's a T-square from his nodes, abuses of
Mhm.
power being pushed to light. And it's going to sit there for a little while, right? It's not
Oh
like
yeah, I think it's got a 92-year orbit maybe, or it's around there. I can't remember exactly. So it's yeah, it will sit at the 20-degree mark for quite some time, and it's coming up to exactly square his nodes. And yeah, it's and we're just starting to see it. People are connecting all the dots that we've been trying to talk about for since the election, really. So, that this is seeded quite some time ago. There's many threads to it. It's not just this one election. the election alliance that we mentioned, they also found evidence of it in 2020, but they didn't quite do it successfully, the actual kind of hacking kind of thing. And that because that's at tabulation level. And you know, I think we've got so much evidence about voter suppression been building up. This has been, you know, a coordinated plan. And and I kind of feel like that's why Biden and Harris didn't do anything on the election, because it's just too complex. It needed to really come out to just do something, you know. Yeah. Anyway,
I think that's
as,
enough for today, don't you?
yeah, I do too. Yep. As always, please, please, please prioritize your self-care. This is, you know, even astrologers that are not and looking at any of the stuff that Kathy and I are doing are saying, like, this is the biggest shift in human consciousness we've ever seen in history. And astrologers all over the world are saying that. So it's big. It's a lot, and we're being kind of asked to kind of pretty much just tune in and go with the flow, and kind of not get kind of wrapped up in every little minute announcement that's coming from up high, if you like. I think it's the end of the patriarchy, the broligarchy, the whatever you want to call it. It's their last gasp. So
I agree. Extinction burst, and you don't want to be extinct. So be very kind to yourself. This Piscean energy, this pileup that we've got, is really good for your own creativity, your own connection to something that is higher and more transcendent to life. Please spend time with people that you enjoy. Please do something that expresses who you really are. And, you know, when it gets to be too much, it's okay to turn your back to it for a while. We all have a different part to play. You don't have to fight every battle, and your role in what is going on may be different every single day, and it may vary according to the hour of the day. Increasingly, your own impulses are going to lead you, especially once Neptune gets into Aries. Your own impulses are going to lead you down the path that is right for your being and your spirit. And just know that everybody is going through this. It's not even Mr. Toad's Wild Ride at this point. My image is insane, which is an amusement park water ride that suddenly turns the boat into a rocket. Um, it, it's that, huh? What? Yeah, that's what's going on.
yeah. And it really is kind of a test of faith too. So when I say don't fall into fear, I'm not saying something awful is going to happen. Awful things are already happening, but it really is a test of faith, because the astrology kind of strongly shows us, and again, not just people looking at the election, that we are going to be okay. And better than okay. In fact, this is just that, yeah, extinction thing, you know, like you burst at the end, before we have this massive shift. So yeah. All
Do
right,
something
thank
really nice
you.
for yourself, everybody.
Yes, I'm having an amazing things happening during this period. I know you are too, Kathy. So also look for the good, look for the magic, look for the possibility. There we go.